and humiliated. But one of the pygmies became very, very popular, okay, at the fair. And his name is Banga, okay? And he was purchased at a slave market and brought back to the fair by Samuel Verner. And he was advertised as an African cannibal, okay? And for 1 nickel, he would display his sharp, pointy teeth to the public. And they were told that his teeth were used to eat human flesh, which was not true. Okay, now at the end of the fair, the pygmies returned to Africa with Samuel Verner, okay? But in 1906, Verner came back and he brought back Banga with him. He came back on July 30th, 1906 to New York City. He also brought back 2 chimpanzees, a snake, and a parrot, okay? And boxes of material that he wanted to sell at the museum. Okay, now when Verner left New York, he left Banga at the American Museum of Natural History in Manhattan. Okay, the museum was becoming one of the premier scientific institutions in the world. Okay, when Banga was at the museum, he would just roam the halls and things like that. So they didn't really like it that much at the museum. They were not used to him. So when Verner returned, they asked him to take Banga somewhere else. So Verner worked out a deal with Banga to stay at the New York Zoological Park, better known as the Bronx Zoo, which consisted of over 260 acres. Okay, now the director of the zoo was William Temple Hornaday. Now he was a zoologist, and he formerly had worked at the Smithsonian. Okay, so he was aware of those brain displays. Okay, and he also founded the National Zoo in D.C. Okay, William Temple Hornaday, his boss was Henry Fairfield Osborne, and he was on a committee that was over, William Hornaday. Now, Osborne was a professor at Columbia University, and him and William Hornaday wanted to exhibit more than just animals at this zoo. So they wanted their zoo to, have, humans as well. Okay, Osborne wanted native Indians because he believed one day they would make a home in the zoological parks without being forced to. So he thought that, by constantly bringing these native people to the zoo, making their public display, that one day they'll just want to pitch tent right next to the zoo. Okay? Well, Banga was their first chance for a human display. Okay? Hornaday took Banga and purchased one of Samuel Verner's chimpanzees to house both Banga and the chimpanzee in the cage together at the zoo's monkey house. Okay, this was presented as science. Okay, you have to know that, because there are all scientists that are in charge of these, exhibits. So you have to know that this is science. This is not for amusement any longer as the freak show that were, conducted by hustlers again. Okay. Banga went on display September 8th, 1906. Okay. The next day, a sign was placed on the cage explaining the new exhibit. African pygmy, 23 years old, 4 feet tall, weighs 103 pounds. Okay. Thousands of New Yorkers came to stare and laugh and debate whether Banga was a man or a monkey. Okay. Newspaper reports brought more people, and in just 3 weeks, the zoo had drew, 250,000 visitors. Okay. Now, some clergymen in New York felt that Banga was being dehumanized, and one of them was Robert Stewart MacArthur. He was the pastor of Calvary Baptist Church, and he felt that, this was degrading and that Banga should be placed in school. Okay, And so at this time, black ministers of New York organized a protest after seeing Ada Banger at the zoo. They saw him as being afraid, and, he was being humiliated and things were thrown at him. Okay. So the ministers demanded that Ada Banger be taken off display and offered education. Okay. James Gordon was a superintendent of the Howard Colored Orphan Asylum in Brooklyn, and he encouraged the zoo to stop making a spectacle of Ada Banger. Okay, he demanded that they stop making a spectacle out of him, and he also had denounced this claim that Ada Banger, was proof of evolution. Okay, now Verner received backlash. Samuel Verner, the man who brought him over, he received backlash for putting Ada Banger on display. Okay, but Hornaday, the zoo director, claimed Ada Banger was only looking after the animals in the cage, and he said that the black minister's protest was ridiculous. He believed in Darwin's theory, but denied that Ada Banger was an exhibit to prove the evolution theory. He even went so far to state that people liked seeing Ada Banger, and he was, relatively happy. He made it clear he wasn't shutting down, his exhibit. Okay. The leaders and committee of the zoo was very pleased with the display. The black ministers, still outraged, decided to appeal to George McClellan, the mayor in New York. But, he refused to meet with the black ministers. His father had indoctrinated him, with the idea that there is no difference between a Negro and a billy goat. So when the black ministers came to meet with him, he sent his assistant with a dismissive note telling them to go back and talk to the New York Zoological Society. Okay? So now the black ministers go back to the Zoological Society, and they went to go see Madison Grant. Okay? Now, he was the Zoological Society secretary. Okay? He had graduated from Yale and had received a law degree from Columbia University. He was also a counselor of the American Geographical Society and one of the founders of the Bronx Zoo. Okay?